Alright, so today I'm going to do an 8x8 inch alla prima oil painting. It's a cityscape at dusk in San Francisco. Alright, I'm going to keep this intro short because this is a real-time video, so all the footage is in real time. And this is a commission. Somebody commissioned me to do this painting. I've done about 8 versions of it. This particular view of Alcatraz at dusk or at night. And I always enjoy painting this painting because of the abstract nature of it. It's kind of fun to experiment. I can move the lights around, whatever. Anyway, let's get started with the process. All right, so I think I'm going to start by toning the panel. And the reason I'm choosing to tone the panel is because there are a lot of lights in this painting, and I want there to be sort of a warm undertone to, you know, the areas of orange, red, yellow, etc. So I'm going to tone it. Usually I don't go this dark. That's kind of a dark tone there, but whatever. I'll go with it. The toning also puts some moisture onto the panel so it's not dry. It does take the paint a little bit better that way. Alright, so I'm looking at this subject and I'm just kind of breaking it down into big shapes. Obviously we have the buildings kind of going like this, but I'm just looking at this whole shape from, you know, where the buildings end to the top of the panel, and kind of just, you know, looking at the photo and matching that shape. Okay, and then it's a little bit kind of divided here, right, like this. Okay, now Alcatraz comes out, actually goes quite a ways, all the way over to here, like that. I don't like how that mountain is right up at the top there. So I could either move or the mountain top is right in the center of the composition. I'm not crazy about that. So could move it over here. Maybe I'll do that. And I could move it over to, you know, the other side as well, but we'll start off with that and see how that looks. All right, so kind of, let's see. Okay, that's Alcatraz. She comes out to about there. All right, and then what next? So now I'm looking at the shapes, and again, just going to try to break this down into simple shapes. So I've got the road here. It comes out a little further. And yeah, I'd say that's kind of close. I mean, the trees are right in here. There's some green. I can see some of the trees. Okay, that's kind of close right there. So very simple. I've looked at the buildings on the left, buildings on the right. These distant buildings here are actually, they're like piers that stick out into the water. And there's even a ship out there. I don't know if you guys can see it, but not that it matters. And let's see. Yeah, this mountain's a little bit big. Now, do I like it that the mountain top is over here, or would I like it over here? I don't know, I kind of like that. All right, I'm using a mixture of ultramarine and alizarin crimson, and I'm just going to start off with some darks here. And just kind of getting the shape of Alcatraz Island. Now now that I've got the kind of the shapes in the right place, I'm looking at, you know, shapes within those shapes. And I've done this composition many times, as I mentioned, but I think I kind of do it differently every time. So it never comes out quite the same. Alright, so I put a little bit of ultramarine with touch of white to do this, to do the distant mountains. They appear to be more blue, so I may have to come in on top of them with some phthalo, which I will do now for the sky. Ooh, that's a little bit too saturated. And I'm just estimating colors at this point. Some of the color is going to mix with the burnt sienna. That's one thing to keep in mind when you start with you know, burnt sienna tone panel. And it appears that the water is more of a blue, like an ultramarine, almost with some purple in it, which ultramarine obviously leans towards purple. And I'm going to keep these values, I'm going to get them as close as I can, but obviously what I'm trying to do is cover the panel. That's the main thing at this point. Just get, and then I can start judging, you know, where things are. You know, I could even put some bright spot of yellow, which I might do that, like say here, to kind of give me an idea of what kind of light I'm dealing with, you know, how bright I can get it. And then I'll key everything to that. And I just went with some dioxazine purple and a bit of yellow ochre. I kind of want to treat this whole side here as just one big mass. So I'll use a large brush for that. And I can do the same over here. Now I want to, obviously there's light in this area, so I want to kind of keep that light, keep this area unpainted. So already you can see, you know, here's the composition. And then I can come in and reinforce darks, but I think what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go for it in the streets here too. Okay, that's a little bit, so I've got burnt sienna with a little bit of dioxazine purple, both of them transparent colors. And I'll just kind of get some of these shapes in here. You know, this is, it's definitely an abstract painting for sure. And the lights are what really define it. And the rest is just, I mean, obviously Alcatraz, but even on Alcatraz, the lights on Alcatraz are what's really interesting, or what really define it. God, there's so much sort of a burnt sienna feel to this street. Now, I might need to, right along the shoreline here, there appears to be, the cliffs are kind of light in color. And I'm going to go with kind of a phthalo color there. And it's hard to tell though, it might be kind of have some purple in it. It's probably not that important as long as I get the values correct. All right, notice how the mountain behind is a little bit lighter. At the top, it's darker. Okay, that's not. that's not going to work. All right, so the top is darker, and then it gets lighter as it goes down towards the water because there's some mist over the water. And I'm using a synthetic bright. And that mist looks kind of like ultramarine. And I might wait on, I don't want to add too much. I want to wait a little bit on getting too detailed with this, or getting too exact with the atmosphere. Okay, and all right, so sometimes I've talked about like kind of sculpting things out a little bit. So in this case, you know, I kind of blob on the paint for the island. And then there you just saw like with the shoreline, you know, I kind of just came along and I'll start cleaning up the shapes a little bit. But I like having that, you know, I like having sort of the vigorous application of paint to begin with. And then you can kind of clean it up using your, you know, the subsequent brush strokes can kind of, you know, put things in order. All right, now paying attention to the value here. I'm kind of going a little bit light, maybe. I'm looking at the relationship between the island and this water, and also this light spot and the water, and it looks like I need to go darker. So I'm just going to put straight ultramarine on there. Always nice to get color into your painting when you can, and if I can use ultramarine straight out of the tube, so much the better. Especially when you put, like, you know, when you're underpainting or your first scrubbing is sort of muddy looking or whatever, you can come in with some real saturated colors afterwards, and they'll still pick up a little bit of the mud that's on the panel, but yeah. All right, now I think the island is too dark in value because it's distant. So I'm going to need to lighten up. I just had an Eagles song in my head, lighten up while we still can. Who remembers that? Anyway, all right, so I'm going to lighten up. And I'm not going to try to get this totally exact because I want to keep it spontaneous, and I mean, anyone who sees it's going to know, okay, that's Alcatraz, I think. All right, so lightening it up a bit. All right, I'm going to put little pops of light out on the island, because there's some right here. I want more red in it though. Nah, I'm going to shift over to a different brush. First, let me put in one of the buildings. Sometimes using, no, it needs to be darker. Sometimes using phthalo for buildings, like for white, when it's in the moonlight or something, can be kind of cool. paint over a lot of this. Okay, so that spot can be lighter, it looks like. It's interesting. I don't know where it's getting its light source from. Or I don't know where the light is from. All right, so putting in a little bit of light on here to see where we are with this thing. And it doesn't have to be really perfect or anything. It's just, again, we're just suggesting things, not like exactly, you know, trying to be, like I said, exact. It's just got to have the right feel to it. All right, now I need to lighten up those cliffs again. Okay, definitely want to get lighter values on that mountain back there. And I can kind of carve out some of these shapes. It's kind of a back and forth sort of thing. And I'm going to add some dioxazine purple and white, which will also aid in you know, that relationship between the between the warms, like the orange and yellows and whatever. Having that purpley blue will be a good thing. I want to lighten up the sky and get a little bit more, I don't know, get more color into it so it's not so dull. And I'm looking to get a glow in the sky as well. I think I'm going to try to lighten that even a little more. So a little bit of phthalo and a little white. Especially right over the mountain. Okay, so I kind of like those relationships. I can actually add a little bit more atmosphere to in here, like right in here, but not too much, but definitely more. Okay, it looks like this water can be lighter. So a lot of going back and forth with values here. I think I'll use a straight edge on the bottom here. Now it's not exactly straight, so I'm going to tilt the straight edge a little bit, but I do want to get that really defined sort of shoreline. And I'll break that up, you know. Right below the island, there's the water is sort of dark, or you know, there's a dark reflection in the water. Kind of add that reflection in the water. Let's see how quickly we can get this, or if we can get it right the first time. All right, I kind of want to move this peak of this mountain a little bit. I want to raise the shoreline a little. This looks a little bit too, the island's thinner. Maybe like that. And I'll come back and touch up those lights afterwards. And we'll get this. And that line is too straight, so I'm going to bump that out a little bit. There's a little bit of a bump. All right, that looks kind of good. Maybe lighten the sky a little bit more. Boy, I'm going back and forth on this. Again, it's like a value thing. Everything's kind of dark. All right, I like that. There could be more mist present, but you know, maybe I'll add that. All right, seems like a pretty good balance there. Now I'm going to start putting some darks into the building areas. And I'm just using ultramarine and alizarin. Not trying to be exact, but just more or less, you know, looking for an interesting pattern of darks. And there's it looks like there's Victorians heading in this direction. I don't want to. All right, now I'm going to look for another variation, or like a variation in the darks, and there appears to be like a purpley, a lighter purpley blue that appears periodically throughout this. That's a little bit too light. And I'm just going to throw some in here too, just because, why not? There's a gray up top that's like the docks or the piers, and it's kind of, how does it relate? It's got areas that are dark, really kind of dark, and then But it's kind of a warm gray. Actually, it's got more red in it, I think. At least here, anyway. All right, now I'm just looking for little temperature shifts. There's some warmth in here, like little areas, glowing areas. Some areas have a fair amount of saturation too. Some oranges up in here. I always kind of exaggerate them too because, you know, they tend to not stand out. Like they don't, if you go to desaturated, the colors don't stand out at all. So I usually exaggerate and push. And all these little irregularities and whatnot, I think they just kind of keep things interesting. So. All right, there's a building, side of a building here. I'm going to kind of exaggerate this too. All right, we're going to go with the dark green for the trees, which are almost in the middle here. There's like one here. God, well, this one comes right out into the street. Kind of a pattern to the top of the trees, and then the bottom of the tree is kind of lit up, so I'm trying not to break up, trying not to break up the patterns too much. You know, try to keep this area like one shape, two shapes, 3, 4, 5, and the Alcatraz. Okay, so now I'm going to come in with some fairly saturated warm colors. And the way I paint light sources, or like say, yeah, like in this case, there's some sort of bright light in the foreground, and I work from dark to light. So first, you know, I put the orange color, and then I'm gonna go to sort of an orange yellow, and then almost a pure yellow with maybe a bit of titanium white mixed into it. I don't want to add too much titanium white because I don't want it to be too chalky, and I don't want to lose the warmth. So there I've put in some almost pure cadmium yellow medium, and then here is some cadmium yellow medium with a bit of white, probably a 50-50 mixture. So you can see it's still pretty yellow. And also too, I'm using really thick paint. So that last bit of paint there is going to be thick. So whenever I'm trying to paint, you know, the light, the spot of light within a glowing area, I'll always use, you know, load up the brush and try to use really thick paint. Here I'm just doing some definition in the streets using a mixture of burnt sienna and dioxazine purple. It's kind of a nice way, dioxazine purple is a nice way to darken burnt sienna. And I do use the straight edge to get some definition in the buildings, but I try not to overdo it. I don't want the painting to look too rigid. I want to keep that loose feel. All right, so I added a few more details like crosswalks here and then a few random windows. I feel like adding those minimal details to what is basically just an abstraction. I think those few details actually tie the thing together and make it really clear what it is without bogging it down in detail. So I do feel like there's a convincing feeling of light. I do also like the light pattern. I don't know if you can see, but there's, the light here, and then it appears to be lighting up these buildings over here. So almost like a pattern of warm light at the bottom. And then also in this upper corner, eye goes off this way, out here. Yeah, I think I like the movement through it. Also too, adding light to a painting, it's nice to have a variety of different lights. Some of the lights in the distance I noticed were cooler. So do you see how those are? Those I put a bit of blue into them. So it's white with a touch of ultramarine. And I think it's nice to have those varieties of warm and cool lights. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this real-time demo. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I have not heard from the person who commissioned this painting, so it is available. If you're interested, email me. My email is in the description below, and I will email you back the details. And if you don't hear back from me, it means it already sold. So I'm just going to do first come, first serve. So that's how I plan to approach it. Anyway, yeah, let me know if you like these long form videos. They don't tend to do as well. I think it's a more select group of people that are into them. I'm happy to do them. So yeah, let me know what you think. And also too, if you'd like to help support the channel and keep these videos coming, I have a Patreon link down below as well. This channel is primarily supported by Patreon, and I really do appreciate that support. Anyway, that's it for now. Stay creative, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.